Hey guys, Lewis here, and today we're going to do a breakdown, a long overdue video. I did a poll the other day on Instagram, and a lot of people wanted me to break this scene down for you guys. But I've been quite busy lately, and also lazy at the same time. But here we are. I have my coffee ready. Everything's ready. So I think I'm gonna record it today. One pointer though, I think I might be quite bad because I've never really done anything. I've never really done any breakdowns before, except from the other sci-fi, cyberpunkish project that I did earlier this year. But that was a more simpler scene, so I don't know how it would go for this one, but I'm gonna try my best. But bear with me. I think over time, if I do more videos like this, I think I'll get better. But anyway, this is how it looks like after post-processing and everything. I do my post work in Photoshop, but today I won't be showing the post-processing part. I think I might do a separate video on that next day, but we'll get to. Sorry, that's not it. This is the raw render that came out of Blender. So this is what we're trying to get for today. Again, I won't be breaking down too in depth because that might just take so long. Because it's quite messy, as you can see the scene. But I think I'm gonna cover most of the important stuff in here. First of all, let's actually look at the building. So as for the building, I used a building generator. I think that uses geonodes. I can basically just add a cube, then extrude, add edge loops, just move around the vertices and edges to get procedurally generated buildings. I'll leave a description. No, sorry. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. It's a very easy way to model things. I don't really like modeling things, so it's very helpful for me. I used that to model this whole building, and then I converted that into mesh. Changed a few things such as this pipe. I don't think it was here before, and I also added some antennas and stuff from Ian Hubert into here. And that was basically it for the building. For my first thought, I really wanted this house to be hanging off a cliff through here, but as I was trying to make it, I didn't really like how it was looking when it's hanging from the cliff, because I don't think this house is the perfect suit for that, so I elevated this ground back. So let's talk about the ground. Whenever I start a new project, I would add a huge ground, subdivide it a bunch of times, and then sculpt the way I would like it. I would suggest you to pay more attention on the close-up areas, which is closer to the camera, because that's the place where we can see the most, and it requires most attention to details. And the further it gets, you can just lay off a little bit. So that's something that is really important. Please set your camera beforehand as well, so that it doesn't have to be the exact position for the final. You can move around before you render, but having a rough idea of where your camera will be at, what it's gonna focus, it's really helpful when it comes to adding details, because you don't need to spend extra time on places that the camera can't see. Once I finish sculpting, let's turn these systems off. Once I'm done with sculpting, as you can see, I made a little pathway over here that's like that. Made some bumps and stuff in the back. So it's just to give a sense of terrain into the scene. If it was just too flat, I think it would just, I don't know. I don't think flat grounds look that great even in renders. So try to pay attention on the sculpts a bit. It really helps sell the realism in this. Even though this is not a very realistic scene, because as you can see, the door is quite small compared to other stuff. I think if a guy would have to walk in, he would have to crouch down a little bit. But anyway, you get the point of the selling realism part. After I sculpted, I did some weight painting for different stuff. For instance, the pines. Pines are the taller trees, which I add in most of my renders. I try to separate weight paints according to categories. For instance, pines and grass, shrubs, fallen stuff like leaves, twigs, sticks and stuff, and smaller trees. I separate pines and smaller trees because sometimes the smaller trees can intersect with pines, and that way what you can do is just remove this weight over here like that. You know, it's easier to remove and add more trees or less trees according to what you want if you separate them. Another thing you might notice is that this grass weight paint is actually inverted. So where the blue is will have grass, and the red places there won't be any grass. It's because scatter 5 actually scatters only on blues. I don't know what's it about. Unless you invert them, by default it just scatters on blue and doesn't scatter on red. So that's something. Another thing is shrubs. It's actually the same layer as grass, but still I separate them because I want more control over things. As you can see, the paint isn't not quite neat because I really focus on where you can see from the camera, like this. If you look, and see for the grass. One tip though, for grass, it requires a lot of system performance whenever you scatter smaller things a lot of times. So I would suggest you just to scatter to the place, scatter at the places where the camera can see. Yeah, after I have painted, and I texture this using Quicksilver Bridge. I mixed the two. Wait, sorry. Take texture paint right here. I made a quick texture paint which mixes solo this out. Go into material preview. Yeah, it is. I have this forest ground texture and this forest path texture. I mixed the two using this texture paint that I did just in Blender, and yeah, after mixing the two, it looks something like this. Let's talk about scattering system. Let's go into rendered view. Come back on the lights. There you go. So I like to scatter a lot of stuff together, like layering, because it gives more realism feel to it. And if you just scatter one type of grass, it won't look as good as scattering, let's say, 5 different types of vegetation. So try to scatter as many variation as you can, but of course this means it will use a lot more resources on your computer. It will be a lot heavier on your computer. So know your computer's limits and do that, because sometimes it can crash Blender and might lose your project. So make a habit out of saving every 5 seconds or whatever. But anyway, I use scatter 5 and grass blade for scatter 5. I would normally use the biomes, but would just scatter some of the elements from that particular biome. This is if I go to into grass blade. It's not loading. Oh, there you go. For instance, if I want this dry grass, sorry, I won't scatter all the systems. I will just scatter one or two of them, the things that I like, and then mix and match between different biomes. So first of all, I have this grass dry uniform. Let's see. That covers most of the areas, and then I added another grass layer, different grass. As you can see, there's more variation into the grass now. Let's just box select this. So it just renders this part. If you don't know how to do it, it's just if you hold Control and B, and then you select the area that you just want the renderer to render. If you want to revert it to the whole render, Control Alt B would revert it back. That's a neat trick. Let's actually turn off the volumetric so you can see better. And then okay, so this is the other grass that I set on top. You can see a little variation here and there, but it's suddenly adding more details to the scatter. And another thing is green grass clump. As you can see, there's more stuff in these areas over here. And I added green plants, some tall grass, some rocks scattered around, as you can see, some flowers, another type of flowers, and some dead grass here and there. So even after that, it still looks very clean. If you look at it, the pathway is very, very clean. So what I did was I showed you the weight paint for fallen stuff. I used Botanic to scatter individual leaves, needles, pine cones and stuff. I use Botanic because Botanic actually comes with individual assets compared to grass blade. With grass blade, if you want to scatter leaves, they come in a flat area. Let me show you what I mean. I open asset browser, going to scatter 5. Let's type in leaves. As you can see, it's sort of like a group. You can separate them by selecting each individual faces and separating, but that's very tedious. I don't like to do it. And if you scatter this whole group on your ground, if your ground isn't flat, it will look very weird. Some of the bits will be floating in air, so I don't really like it. So that's something. So what I do is I scatter with Botanic. Here you go. God damn it. First of all, I scatter some fallen leaves. And some needles. You can see more texture into the ground, sorry. I think I might have to turn off depth a bit and then turn off. Yeah, there you go. As you can see in the ground, you'll see the needles in there, and then I also scatter some pine cones. You can see some pine cones over there, and some stones that, there you go, and some sticks. Just more variation, more detail to the ground. I really recommend taking your time with your scatters, because even though it's like an automated process, because you're just telling Blender what to do, trying to dial in where you're scattering, what you're scattering, and why you're scattering, it's a huge deal when it comes to making these a lot more realistic, a lot more interesting. So even after that, it's still lacking some more details. So what I did was I added more details by individually hand placing stones, stumps, logs, branches, and stuff. And there you go. This actually pieces. This actually pieced everything together. But one thing for this particular scene, it's a nighttime scene, so not a lot of things are visible here. So you can get away with a lot of things. For instance, I didn't even texture to the right scale for the floor, but since it's a night scene, you can't really see it. Let me turn this back here, and then let's add in trees. There you go. So right now it's looking quite good for this lighting and stuff. But yeah, let's talk about how I scattered the trees. For scattering trees, these trees are from bee production vegetation add-on. If you go into tree, you see there's a bunch of trees. I really recommend their add-on. They come with lots and lots of high quality trees, and I really love to use them because they have their shaders are also very good. So yeah, let's talk about scattering trees. Again, with the weight paint, I painted where I want the pines to be at, the small trees to be at. Here are the trees that I use. I changed some of them to bounds because it is a lot easier on my system to handle bounds. But if you don't know how to change them, if you select a bunch of trees, go into object properties, scroll down, and under visibility, under viewport display, you'll see display as. Click the drop down, hold Alt and click bounce, and it will change to everything you selected. So in the scatter system, everything will be shown as bounce, but if you want to change it back, Alt click textures. Why I hold Alt is to change all of my selection into bounds or textured. If you don't hold Alt, it will just change the last selected one. Anyway, scattering trees, it's a lot easier than scattering grass because they're just trees. I'd like to add different variation of trees, of course. As you can see, even for the smaller trees, you have this little one, this medium-sized one, this big one, the small one again, and this medium-sized one again. So I like to add a lot of variation into scattering trees as well. As for the pines, let's change these into textured again. These are the 4 pines that I use for the scattering. As you can see, it's a lot heavier now since it's rendering a lot of faces. So I'm just gonna change into bounds again. I'll tell you what this is later on, but try to play with the seed a little bit. Try to see how the lighting is gonna work with your scattering of your trees and such too. And then what I did was I scattered some bushes around. Don't overdo the bushes because it would just everything would just look very, very bushy and, you know, bumpy, I guess. So don't overdo with the bushes, at least for my personal taste. I also added a new plane, lowered this down a little bit so from the camera view you can't see the plane. Then I scattered a bunch of pines which will act as a background, so it doesn't really look like the world is ending over there. So I've seen a lot of renders where you can see the edge of your scene. That's really not good if you think about it. What you could do is you could also scatter big bushes around the back so you can see there's no edges and stuff, but I know what I'm gonna do in post. I'm gonna add fog over here so you won't see the edge that much. So, but the trunks of the trees do a lot more than you think, so scattering like this is actually quite handy. That's what I usually do as well. Another thing I like to do is adding individual trees and stuff manually. It's these. I always like to frame the camera with stuff in 3D. For instance, this tree and this tree is kind of acting as if there was a vignette around the camera, but it's actually a physical vignette. Okay, so now that I've talked about scattering and vegetation and stuff, let's talk about lighting. Lighting is a very important aspect in 3D. Depending on your lighting, it can change the entire mood and feel of your scene. But one tricky part of lighting is there's no lighting it wrong, I guess. It's just a matter of if it's gonna look good or not. If you make sense of your whole lighting setup, I think it's gonna look good and it's gonna make sense in a way. But of course, like, try not to light it weirdly, and that might make it look really weird, and I don't know. But what I'm saying is there's no right or wrong when it comes to lighting. For this particular scene, I really didn't go for a realistic lighting, as you can see. I went for a more stylized, and I want everything to be nicely lit, but also casting shadows at the same time. So it was a tricky lighting setup to do, but I think I did an okay job on this. So yeah, let me turn off all the lights that I have in here. So I've turned off all the lights that I added manually. I mean, I also added some lights for the light bulbs, of course, that's gonna emit the light. And the windows are also emitting light since it's I made that an emission surface. But so first of all, I have this huge area light that is shining directly on top. This is acting as if there was a moonlight bouncing off the sky and stuff. It's lighting up a lot of the trees on the top over there. Why I did this is to display what is closer and what is further away. For instance, like if I turn this off, you can see how everything is blending together over there. So by adding that, I can display what is in the back and what is closer to the camera. Since the closer the closer stuff to the camera is a lot darker. And I added this light around the house. It's a purple, sorry, why did I say purpley? It's a purple light. It's shining directly into the corner of the house. It's not that realistic when it comes when you think about it, but I want to separate the house and the background a little bit. So without this, everything's blending in together over here. You can't not see the air conditioner unit over here, and it's blending in with the tree in the back. So by adding this light, it separates the two. That's something I do a lot of the times, to separate foreground, background, your main focus, and your background stuff, to, you know, like. And another light I added was here. It's inside this little, I don't know what it's called, but anyway, this is emitting orange light. It's to make people focus on this light and see the cat over here. And it's not as bright as the other areas of, like, for instance, the windows. So it doesn't steal much focus on other areas, but it's still emitting some sense of focus into it, so drawing some attention to it. So I think it's a really good touch for people to see the little cat over there. Oh, it's hard to scroll in 3D space when there's a lot of stuff going on. Another thing I added was the area light, which is a little bit further away from the camera. Without this light, a lot of the stuff in the foreground is just too dark. See, look, these ones you cannot see quite well, but adding that light, you can see a lot of the stuff, and it gives a little bit of rim light for the cat over here, so it separates the background and the cat really well. Oh, I forgot to mention, a lot of these lights I turn off volume scatter visibility, so like without turning this off, you can see a light over there, like a light source over there. I don't really like that, so it's basically acting as a fake light. Another area light I added was, where is it? Oh, not an area light. I changed it to spotlight. So right over here, if you look at it, this place is originally quite dark. You cannot see the bike over there. I think the bike is a good touch over there. I wanted people to see it, so I added a very dim spotlight, and it highlights the bike a little bit more. It's not that much of a difference, but it does do a little bit if you zoom out and see the difference. So this is with the area light, and this is without it. And this is without it. So you cannot see the edge of the bike that much, but adding little light over there, it adds a lot to the image. Another thing I like to add is some different colored lights into the scene. For instance, this green one coming straight from the back of the house over here. It's mostly acting as an ambient light. It's an optional thing to do, but I like to do those a lot of the time, so that's something. And then I also added a sun lamp. I don't really know why I have this. Maybe it was just a starting point. I think I was just lighting the entire scene with just a sun, and I didn't really bother to turn it off. I mean, it's at 1 strength, so it doesn't really do much, but I think it's still there. I just added it, and then that's basically it. I think I've talked about most of the aspects from this project. Oh, the cats are from Dash Studio. I think it's called Zeus Cat. I haven't really developed a fur system yet at that point when I was making this scene, so there's no fur in here. I think I painted a little bit in Photoshop, which I'll show you later in another video, but now I've developed a fur system, a complete new rig for those Zeus cats within Blender. I think I will share with you guys how I did the whole fur and rigging the cat, maybe as a Patreon content, which I'm very excited about. I'm gonna launch my Patreon very soon, so stay tuned for that. A lot of exclusive and detailed tutorials will be on there, but still I won't get away from the whole YouTube thing. I will still do smaller breakdowns stuff on YouTube, which a lot of people can see without having to support me, I guess. But if you want to completely support me, you can check out my Patreon, but which is not out yet. I mean, I'm just pre-advertising. But I'm really excited for that Patreon. I have a lot of ideas going on for it, what I should share, what videos I should make and stuff. So yeah, anyway, so that's a cat. Oh, render settings. I like to render at 3 times 1080 1350, which is 3240 by 4050, which is almost 4K, I think, or I don't know if that qualifies as 4K. I'll have to research that. But anyway, that's the resolution that I'm using, and did it go? Oh, it's right here. I rendered this one at 800 samples with open image denoiser. I don't like to use optics because it makes things so blurry when it comes to final render. It is faster than open image denoiser, I think, but I just like to use open image denoiser. It's a lot cleaner and it's a lot sharper compared to the optics. I think that's all. I've covered most of the stuff. This is the very first breakdown of a big scene like this. Well, this is not necessarily big, but compared to the ones I've done before, it's quite big. So please let me know in the comments below what I could have done to make this video better, or what could I have explained better. I would like to learn how to create these videos well enough too. So I will do a lot more like this in the future, maybe even time-lapse. I started doing this project with my recording software on, but I forgot to record the very last bit, which made a huge change in this scene. So I couldn't really upload the time-lapse anymore. But anyway, I hope this breakdown helps a lot for you guys. I'm eager to do more again, so yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.